You can't talk about it without speaking about a Muslim unity. That's where it starts. To remove all the jahiliyyah and actually get on track with La ilaha illallah. That's where it goes. That's where it goes. Absolutely. Like I said, the one that actually made Palestine be an Islamic issue was really Hassan al-Banna. He was the one that said, wait a minute, this is an Islamic issue. We can't talk about it as if it was some kind of a Jahiliyyah issue. All right, let's continue, guys, right here. We talked about Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, and we actually got to the part وأعتزلكم وما تدعون من دون الله وأدعو ربي عسى ألا أكون بدعاء ربي شقيا. This is Prophet Ibrahim making that transition in where he's going to depart the people that were once his supporters, his own family. This is really important because usually we tend to think about our own family as supporters, but when your own supporters become the major enemy for you, that's when things become hardest on you. That's when it becomes the hardest on you, because if your only supporters all of a sudden become your enemy, that tells you how narrow the world becomes in your eyes. So the Lord Almighty says that Prophet Ibrahim says, وَأَعْتَزِلُكُمْ. I'm now. Why did he say that? Well, because his own father actually said, and depart me, and leave me. So he says, وَأَعْتَزِلُكُمْ. I'm going to leave you now. I will leave you. I will just isolate myself away from this and all that you worship other than the Lord Almighty. وَأَدْعُو رَبِّي. And now, since I will be leaving the lifestyle, the partners that you associated with the Lord Almighty, then I will have another vision in life. I will live based on a vision of worship to the Lord Almighty. وَأَدْعُو رَبِّي. Now the word ad'u can actually mean a number of different meanings. The word ad'u Rabbi can mean to practice an invocation. In other words, some type of dua, some type of dua where the person is making that invocation with the Lord Almighty. And it can also mean ad'u Rabbi, meaning I worship the Lord Almighty. So here in the end is that he needed to redefine his relationship with the people around him, needed to redefine what he's living his life based on, and needed to redefine his relationship with the people. This is really important. When you redefine who you are, what you are, you also redefine your relationships in who you want to be included within the circle. This is really important, everyone, because you actually create a circle around you. The circle has a center, right? Every circle has a center. What is the center of your circle? It's like the nucleus. That's where the gravity all comes in. Remember the atoms? The atoms, the electrons, the protons, they all circulate, right? They all circulate, then the electrons go in all these different directions, right? But in the end, is that the closer it is to the nucleus, the stronger the gravity, right? And that's the same thing. And when you're talking about a circle, what is the center of your circle? Is the center of your circle based on La ilaha illallah? If so, if your circle is based on La ilaha illallah, that's when the people that are sitting in your circle are going to be using that center. There's no way that you can have a friend that has a different circle, then you're going to repel away. And that's what Prophet Ibrahim was doing. He repelled away and left because their circle was different. Are you guys with me here? His father, the people that were part of his community at one point, because their center was different than La ilaha illallah, he knew he had to change the people. He needed to change the environment because the center was totally different. He had to leave. And that's the same thing. That you have to take the initiative in your life. You have to take and make the decision at one point in your life that you have to change the people that you have to change the circle that you're with at one point, because if you don't change that circle, then you're actually going to find, let me see, I'm not sure. So are the people hearing me right? So there's some people, okay. I don't know, that people are telling me they're not hearing me right. So if people that are not hearing me right, tell me if they are, or the people that are hearing me right. Okay, good. So when you look at the circle, you're going to define, like I said, who you put inside that circle. And sometimes you have to change the environment. You have to redefine what your circle is based on. It's supposed to be based on La ilaha illallah, which is why the Prophet ﷺ in the hadith, he actually said not to eat. And he said that you should only eat with a believer. It's not telling you, hey, don't drink coffee with somebody that's not mu'min. But it's generally telling you that who you hang out with, who you talk to, who you sit as a comrade with, who you accompany is really the person that is going to later on redefine who you are and what you live your life based on. So you have to redefine every once in a while. You got to redefine and refine new friends based on what area you want to be in. What do we mean by that? If we actually look at this, I'm going to draw a little triangle right here. All right. Think of this triangle as, okay, I'm trying to, but this is actually standing in the way. Okay, no, don't worry. I'm bad at art, but not to the point that I can't draw a triangle. Okay, so here we go. Here's our little triangle. All right. The lower the stage, the more people that are going to fit in this triangle. All right. The higher the stage, the less people. All right. The higher the stage, the less people, to the point that you're going to find very few. It depends on what you're aiming. What is your aim? What is the level that you want to get? What is the level that you want to get to? If your level is just to be Muslim, you're at this level. You're going to find a lot of people like in that level. But if your goal, no, I don't want just a Muslim, I want a mu'min, you're going to find less and less people. And if you want to be a muhsin, you're going to find even less people. In fact, you may not even find a friend. Shafi'i died, and he always wished to find a friend. We're human beings at the end of the day. We always need a friend. We always need somebody next to us. We're human beings. Even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Prophet Adam, a wife, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, why did he create him a wife? Because he wanted to give him uns. He wanted to get him out of that loneliness. It was in order to give him tranquility, to give him mercy, to give him companion. It's part of our human nature. It's part of our human nature. But if you plan to go up in the levels of Iman, prepare to find less and less friends. See what I'm saying? Prepare to find less and less friends. And by the way, you choose the friend that you want to be your role model. You choose the friend that you want to be your role model. Now, that's the definition of who you want to accompany. Remember, Prophet Ibrahim left his people and was really searching for a company. At the end of the day, He was searching for support. What do you need from a company? What do you need from friends? What do you need from family? You're looking for mercy. You're looking for company. You're looking for support. What happened? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, when he left them, when he isolated himself away from the center of life that they were practicing, which is the idol worship, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, that's when we had gifted him with Ishaq and Yaqub, Isaac and Jacob, both children. وَكُلًّا جَعَلْنَا نَبِيًّا. Not only was he gifted 2 sons as a replacement of all the family that he had just left, that were one point his supporters, but the Lord Almighty gave him 2 people. But is 2 equal to many? And this is in order to explain and tell us that it's not about how many people you have around you, it's about the quality of that person. The quality of that person, their iman can actually worth not only all the people, all your family, and all the support that you need, because the quality of these 2, Ishaq and Yaqub, it was an enough support to grant him even more. And both were prophets. Both were prophets to say not only were they righteous, but they were actually at the highest level of being righteous. You would rarely find people at this point of the triangle of ihsan. So the Lord Almighty gave him not only people at this level, but people at the highest level. At the highest level. وَكُلًّا جَعَلْنَا نَبِيًّا. Then, وَوَهَبْنَا لَهُم مِّن رَحْمَتِنَا. Not only were Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, and was Prophet Ibrahim granted Ishaq and Yaqub, but even Prophet Ishaq and Yaqub were also وَهَبْنَا لَهُم مِّن رَحْمَتِنَا وَجَعَلْنَا لَهُمْ لِسَانَ صِدْقٍ عَلِيًّا. So even those prophets, what happened? The Lord Almighty had even granted them, look at the word, granted them from his mercy. Why? Remember the circle. Now the circle is a really important thing to remember in your life, because in that circle, there's always that point. Who do you want to put in your circle? Remember, the person in your circle, if they didn't live their life based on La ilaha illallah, they don't want to be in your circle. They might come in and run away really quick because they can't stand it. They can't stand it. Because to live in the circle, actually means a way of life. Remember, even if you look at the atoms, even when you speak about space, the planets are rotating in the same way. The moons are rotating in the same way. Everything rotating in the same way. If they cannot live based on the terms of how close they are to the center, they will actually little by little walk off and go away. This is a gravity. This is the gravity. The gravity is going to identify how fast you go and what direction you go, right? When you say how fast you go, and when you talk about velocity, you talk about direction, you're actually talking about the ethics that you carry in life. On what terms are you heading in your life? What is the term you're living on based in life? What is the center that you're trying to approach? The farther you are from the center, the less, here's one very important, the less in terms of speed, And of course, the farther away from the center, the more you're going to be shifting away. You'll be shifting away without you realizing. Shifting away can mean shifting away not only from the center, but shifting away from the Lord Almighty. So here, وَوَهَبْنَا لَهُم مِّن رَحْمَتِنَا, that the Lord Almighty had granted them from His mercy. In other words, it wasn't a choice that He made, but the Lord Almighty, from His mercy, the Lord Almighty gave him companions. You would usually search yourself for the friend, but the Lord Almighty brought him the friends. Look at that. And this is especially for the sisters looking for pious husbands. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ. Whoever has taqwa, whoever lives based on taqwa, what happens? يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. The Lord Almighty, يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. What does that mean? The Lord Almighty will make an exit for you from any dilemma that you might encounter. But not only that, وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ. In other words, these paths that you might be going around, the Lord Almighty.
أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
So again, you usually choose your friend, but the Lord Almighty actually chose the companions, but not any type of companion. He needed a companion that had and embraced mercy. So the Lord Almighty actually said that the Lord Almighty had sent from His own mercy. And by the way, the word وَوَهَبْنَا لَهُم مِّن رَحْمَتِنَا is actually frequently said about different prophets in the same way, in order to emphasize the pattern that even when you leave the wrong companions, the Lord Almighty will replace newer companions that will be merciful, that will be steadfast, and that will be supporters to you. In other words, whoever leaves something for the sake of the Lord Almighty will compensate them with something better. So here, وَجَعَلْنَا لَهُمْ لِسَانَ صِدْقٍ عَلِيًّا. Now this would actually have to be written in gold. Why? Because the companion, the most important companion that you would get is not only a companion that would support you in your life, but is a companion that will support you on the principle that you carry, on the principle that you live for, that will be always there to remind you when you fall short. They will always be there to remind you to live based on the legacy of the center of that circle, La ilaha illallah. So the Lord Almighty says, وَجَعَلْنَا لَهُمْ لِسَانَ صِدْقٍ. Their tongue was a tongue of honesty, was a tongue of principle, was a tongue that was speaking always in high legacy. It was always a tongue that was not speaking of any type of a language, but it was always speaking of high matters, of matters that deserve to be talked about. And that's why he said, Lisana sidq. They always spoke in truth, and they let truth be the matters that they would always talk about, the matters that they actually had that consideration for. وَاذْكُرْ فِي الْكِتَابِ مُوسَى. With that legacy comes another story. And remember the story of Musa, and focus on the story of Musa in a different way. Why? Because this man, إِنَّهُ كَانَ مُخْلَصًا. This man was a man of sincerity. Before he goes further in speaking about Prophet Musa alayhi salam, he wants to bring to your attention, you want a person of legacy. You want a person of a pattern to remember who lives based on the center. Well, we mentioned Prophet Zechariah, we mentioned Yahya, we mentioned Maryam, we mentioned Ibrahim, and now we also mentioned Ishaq and Yaqub. Now we will mention another good example. And that is, and remember the fil kitab, remember in the book, telling Bani Israel, telling the people of the book, telling the Christians, telling the Jews, remember in the book that man named Musa, that man was not just a mukhlisan, but he was actually mukhlasan. He was at a higher level of ikhlas, at a higher level of sincerity. This man carried the legacy to the highest level of what any man can carry. He was mukhlasan. He was a man that lived the word, in each and every single detail of it. And he was a Rasul. He was a man that carried the message. He was a man that lived the legislature. He was a man that lived to pass out the message, which is La ilaha illallah. Nabiya is different than Rasul, because Rasul would mean, well, with different opinions between scholars on which one really is the Rasul Nabi, but Rasul would be a person that would carry on the legislature from previous prophets and then apply the same rulings to the contemporary times. And Nabiya is a prophet that actually brings in new legislature, not by himself, but from the Lord Almighty. But in the end, is that, so what, wouldn't they contradict one another? They wouldn't contradict one another, because he came to complete the message that was sent with the prophets before him. And then he later also was given a legislature in order to fulfill the word of the Lord Almighty. But Musa was not like any other prophet. He had something significant about him. Prophet Musa alayhi salam lived as an orphan. His father was not there. His mother was there. But even his mother, in order to protect her son, she had to throw him in the river to keep him protected. Would you throw somebody in the middle of a water where there's no food, no water, and certainly no one to take care of a child? But with all the odds, with all the paradox that actually lies in this, same thing with Prophet Ibrahim, where in order to protect his son, the Lord Almighty was telling him to leave him in the desert of the land of Becca. On the other hand, Musa's mom was ordered to leave her son in the flowing waters. And where does the water take him? Where does the water take him? The house of the Pharaoh himself. يَأْخُذْهُ عَدُوٌّ لِي وَعَدُوٌّ لَكَ. Who's going to take him? Who's going to have his hands or lay over his hands on him? It was actually an enemy to Allah, an enemy to Musa. But the Lord Almighty, even when he puts him in those areas, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, yes, he was isolated. Yes, even his mother, when she was brought close to him, Prophet Musa alayhi salam ends up running away from the city that he had grew up in to find security, safety. He runs up running away, lived in a city far away, but the Lord Almighty gave him a companion when he actually sat watching. And then he starts making that dua. But the Lord Almighty wanted Prophet Musa alayhi salam to have another company. What company is that? That was the company of the Lord Almighty himself. It's a different company. Prophet Ibrahim had the company of his own children, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him min rahmatina Ishaq and Yaqub. But the Lord Almighty was the company of Prophet Musa alayhi salam. So what was the company? وَنَادَيْنَاهُ مِنْ جَانِبِ الطُّورِ الْأَيْمَنِ. And he was called from the right side of that mountain. وَقَرَّبْنَاهُ نَجِيًّا. And he was brought closer for a private conversation. It was a private conversation between the Lord Almighty and Prophet Musa. No other prophet had that kind of a closeness. Just when you feel isolated, and just when you thought you were isolated, just when you thought that the Lord Almighty had isolated you and left you, the Lord Almighty says, Musa was taken for a private conversation. Was taken not only a private conversation, but he actually said, قَرَّبْنَاهُ. He was brought closer for even a closer private conversation. It wasn't a conversation where, because the word nadayna usually means to call somebody from far, but the ayah wanted to assure you that it was not far, but it was actually close. So you would not think nadayna means to call him from far, but it was actually close. And it wasn't any type of a conversation. It wasn't to talk somebody from far as if you're talking to them and they're barely hearing you. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Najiyya. No, it was actually calling him to give him that elevation, that honor. And at the same time, he was brought closer for a private talk where no one hears but him. وَوَهَبْنَا لَهُ. And the same pattern, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about Prophet Zakaria and about Prophet Ibrahim, وَهَبْنَا لَهُ. We granted him again. He didn't have a son of his own, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, so we granted him. Remember, when you're isolated, the Lord Almighty brings you somebody else. So he said, وَوَهَبْنَا لَهُ مِنْ رَحْمَتِنَا. The same, look at this, right here. وَوَهَبْنَا لَهُ مِنْ رَحْمَتِنَا. Same thing, right? Same thing right here. What is that? To tell you the same pattern. Just if you actually let Allah be your center, the Lord Almighty will bring you the one to support you. So, وَوَهَبْنَا لَهُ مِنْ رَحْمَتِنَا أَخَاهُ هَارُونَ نَبِيًّا. His own brother Harun was the one to be the supporter, but with rahmah. And he was not any type of a person. He was actually a person of the center of La ilaha illallah on the highest level. He was a prophet. We'll continue, inshallah, after Salah, inshallah. I'm going to